Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining our very first Joint Credit Mechanism webinar of this year, entitled Utilizing JCM During the COVID-19 Period. I'm your host, Karu Yamaguchi from Global Environment Center Foundation, JEC. JCM has contributed to the uptake of advanced low and decarbonizing technologies in a number of core sectors in JCM member countries, including Thailand, which has the second highest number of JCM projects, totaling 33 as of today. This clearly shows great interest both from Japanese and Thai entities alike, and we certainly hope to leverage that interest into action with this webinar today. The ongoing COVID-19 crisis certainly poses new challenges for all of us. But at the same time, we certainly believe that out of new challenges, new ideas and opportunities can emerge. Our guest speakers today will share with you their firsthand experiences and thoughts on JCM, which we certainly hope that will spark new ideas for you to cope with and thrive during the COVID-19 period. Okay, now I'd like to move on to some of the announcements for the audience today. The first one on the list is about interpretation. We do have simultaneous interpretation in English and Thai today. To use the interpretation option, please find it on the menu bar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And in order to listen to interpretation in Thai, please select French, as we unfortunately didn't have Thai as one of the options for the Zoom interface. So please select English for English and French for Thai. Next one on the list is about Q&A session. We will be holding 2 Q&A sessions at the end of each section today. To submit your questions, please use the Q&A feature that could be also found at the menu bar on the bottom of the Zoom screen. 2 things that I would like to ask the audience today when they submit their questions. The first one is please write your questions in English. And the second one is please write the name of the speaker that the question is for. So just 2 things, please write in English and please write the name of the speaker so we will know who to ask your questions. The third on the list is about individual meetings and business matchmaking events. At the end of this seminar, we will be holding individual meetings for those who wish to speak directly with the representatives from either Global Environment Center Foundation, JEC, or representatives from Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management Organization, TGO. We will also be facilitating individual business matchmaking meetings between participants who wish to seek potential JCM project partners. So please stick around until the end for that. But I would like to make it clear that these individual meetings are only for those who made a reservation prior to today. In other words, unfortunately, if you didn't make a reservation prior to today, you won't be able to participate in these individual meetings. But I would like to remind everyone that you can always send us questions through emails or send your questions during this seminar. We're always happy to answer your questions. And last on the list is please take a moment to answer the poll questions, a questionnaire that's also on the menu bar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. It will help us tremendously to improve our future webinars. So please take, it only takes 10 seconds, so please take a moment to answer them, and we like to thank you for that in advance. Okay, now that's it all from me. Thank you for your patient attention in advance for those. And I would like to move on to the first part of this webinar, opening remarks. First, I would like to introduce our guest speaker for the opening remarks, Dr. Natarika Wayupar Nitipon, Deputy Executive Director, at Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management Organization, TGO. Dr. Nichpon, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management Organization, Mr. Kietchai Maitriwong, Executive Director of Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management Organization, or TGO, has an urgent commitment, so he assigned me to deliver his speech on behalf of our organization. Dear participants to this webinar on the joint crediting mechanism implementation in Thailand, utilizing the JCM during the COVID-19 period. I'm very pleased to deliver this as opening speech. Since 2015 that Thailand signed the joint crediting mechanism with the Japanese government to on 19 November 2015, the cabinet, the Royal Thai government's cabinet assigned Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management Organization to be the Secretariat Office for the JCM for Thailand. And to boost the implementation of the JCM projects in Thailand, the JCM developers who are selected by the Ministry of Environment Japan will receive the financial support to implement the JCM model project, which they must use the low carbon technology in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions instead of using general technology. The developers of the JCM project must conduct the measurement, reporting, and verification process due to the methodology approved by our joint crediting mechanism, and must prove the emission reduction unit or the outcomes of emission reduction units, and also share the amount of emission reduction units, or sometimes we call the carbon credits, to the Japanese partner in return. Since Thailand signed the joint crediting mechanism with the Japanese government, the Japanese government provide financial support to develop the JCM model project in Thailand. Nowadays, we have 33 JCM model projects in our country, accounting for the investment or the, from the Japanese side support, 2,000 million baht or 7,000 million yen, which account for the investment from the JCM project in Thailand more than 7,000 million baht or more than 24 million yen. The Thai partners are nowadays, we have 28 companies that develop the JCM model project. They are renewable energy projects for 14 projects, and energy efficiency projects for 19 projects. And we expect the outcomes of these model projects to reduce greenhouse gas emissions more than 186,000 tons of CO2 equivalent per year. Since we have implemented the JCM in Thailand, Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management Organization received the full cooperation from the Japanese agencies, and that the seminar today, Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management Organization under Ministry of Natural Resource and Environment Thailand jointly organized this workshop with the Ministry of Environment Japan, who is the climate financing partner for JCM model project. and the Global Environment Center Foundation, who is the authority for selecting the JCM model project, who will receive the funding to be the JCM model projects. So in this regard, this seminar is arranged in order to promote and outreaching the information of the JCM and the conditions for being supported under the JCM mechanism. And also that will include the development of the JCM projects in Thailand, and which can lead to the matchmaking of the business partners between the Thai partners and the Japanese partner for developing the JCM project. So and this is a good occasion to have this seminar, and I would like to announce the interest and also fruitful as we lay down the objection for today's seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nitipon, for your very encouraging words. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Yoshinori Suga. He's the first secretary at Embassy of Japan in Thailand. Mr. Suga, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Natalie Kawaipa, Nippon Deputy Executive Director of TGO, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great honor to join this JCM webinar as a representative from Japanese Embassy in Thailand, as well as the government of Japan, for the opening remarks. I sincerely welcome all of you to today's JCM seminar. First of all, using this opportunity, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Thai partners, particularly TGO, which is Thai focal point of JCM. Thanks to the efforts by Thai and Japanese partners, we have been proudly celebrating a highest number of JCM projects so far. At the same time, I am ambitious enough to wish further JCM projects in Thailand with more people and wider scope of business to accelerate mitigation against climate change, as well as actions for sustainable development under the partnership between Thailand and Japan. Now, every country in the world is struggling in the outbreak of COVID-19 to find the best solution for economy as well as environment and society. Due to the COVID-19, many kinds of activities, including yours, are required to change more or less. Maybe some are coming back or will come back soon, while others will remain and become new normal. Some industries, such as tourism, targeting foreign tourists, are suffering more. But on the other hand, other industries, such as e-commerce, are rapidly growing. It is so complicated and tough. But anyway, JCM can support business, either suffering or not suffering from the COVID-19. You remember that before the outbreak, we were working hard to transform our society to a more sustainable one. And now in such a situation, we are even more encouraged to do so. As you may know, the Building Back Better concept probably would provide more opportunities for those who are considering JCM projects. Just yesterday, I joined the webinar of ASEAN Sustainable Energy Week, and the panelists actually discussed these points. I think that is very relevant to today's seminar. As my conclusion, there are many contexts. It may be important to look at the whole picture and capture all the context well. I believe that through today's seminar, you will have a chance to consider your opportunities from different kinds of viewpoints. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I hope that the seminar will be very beneficial for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suga, for offering very valuable insight for that. And would like to thank both of you for taking the time for offering the opening remarks. I'd like to move on to the next session entitled Information Sharing on the JCM Progress. I'd like to give a quick reminder about the interpretation. To listen to Thai, please select French. To listen to it in English, please select English. And we'll also be accepting questions for this session. So please feel free to send us your questions, but please remember to write your questions in English and write the name of the speaker that your question is for. Okay, so I would like to introduce our first guest speaker for this session. Her name is Ms. Maiko Uga. She's a section chief of the Office of Market Mechanisms at the Ministry of the Environment, Government of Japan. Ms. Uga, over to you.
Okay, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment of Thailand and Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management Organization for continuous support and helping this event to happen, and all the participants to this webinar. So we are still in the midst of COVID-19 crisis, and uncertainty remains in the future. But this pandemic is not the only crisis that humans are facing now. Climate change is the other issue that requires us to take immediate actions. The magnitude of COVID impacts are probably different for each country, business sector, or even each organization. Probably same for climate change. One solution probably doesn't fit for all. However, strengthening international cooperation is vital to overcome these crises. Through the joint crediting mechanism I'm talking today, we are hoping to support those who are trying to build back better and more resilient future, but need some resources to make things happen. So this webinar will explore a way that business can adapt to the new normal with digital technology or other things, and also contribute to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. Today, good practices and other input from our model project and information related to the financial support for project will be shared. The webinar is also followed by individual consultation with organizers and virtual business matching of webinar participants. I hope you take advantage of these great opportunities. Now I'm moving to my presentation. And so first, I'm going to talk about the overview of the JCM. Maybe some of you are not familiar with the Joint Crediting Mechanism or the JCM. So first, I'd like to briefly introduce about the mechanism and then how the business can benefit from the scheme. The JCM is an international cooperation implemented by Japan and 17 partner countries, including Thailand. The JCM aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and contribute to sustainable development of the JCM partner countries through application of advanced low carbon or decarbonization technologies. Supported by both government, companies from Japan and partner country collaborate on GHG emission reduction project. These emission reduction from the project are quantitatively calculated, and part of the achievement is shared as carbon credit among stakeholders, according to the contribution to the project. Also, the JCM contribute to the ultimate objective of the United Nations Framework Conventions on Climate Change, by facilitating global actions for GHG emission reductions or removals. The JCM between Thailand and Japan was started in 2015. Compared to other countries, it is relatively recent, but we have seen successful projects involving Thai local companies. Next slide, I'd like to share some of the ongoing efforts under the JCM. Our ministry has been trying to scale up sustainable co-benefits and emission reduction of each project. As I said, we not only try to contribute to the reduction of GHG emissions, but also sustainable development of partner countries through the JCM. With finite resources, we like to create more impact through our supported projects. As a part of effort, we've been doing the assessment of the Sustainable Development Goals contribution by our project since last year. Also, we developed a guideline on gender equality for JCM model project. The guideline lists recommended action to be taken by project participants. The last bottom part of this slide is collaboration with international organizations. We have been working with the Asian Development Bank through the Japan Fund for the JCM. It's a special JCM fund for ADB finance project that private sector can utilize. Last year, we also started a new collaboration with the World Bank Group. From next slide, I'm going to touch upon the financial support for JCM model project. The first support scheme is JCM model project. To put it simply, this scheme supports renewable energy or energy efficiency projects. This is by far the largest funding source for project under the JCM, and the budget for fiscal year 2020 is approximately $90 million US. For this scheme, the Ministry of the Environment supports up to half of the investment costs when the international consortium installs advanced low carbon or decarbonization technologies. Once the consortium installs the facility, they need to monitor and report CO2 emission reduction and undergo third-party review. Maybe the monitoring part sounds a lot to you, but we also provide professional support for the process to make things easier for you to implement the JCM project. For the application of this fiscal year has been started in April, and the details are explained by the Global Environmental Center Foundation later on. This is a diagram of JCM F-gas model project. It is similar to the JCM model project I just explained, but it is as financial support target the recovery and destruction of fluorinated greenhouse gases and support the establishment of business scheme and transportation of gas in addition to the actual installation of facilities. This is the map of projects supported by our ministry, and there are 34 projects in Thailand and more than 160 projects all over the world. So these letters are very tiny, so maybe you can look at later. So the last part of my presentation is contribution of the JCM model project. This slide shows some examples that JCM has contributed to sustainable development in partner countries. As you can see, good projects contribute multiple targets of SDGs, including the Goal 13 climate action. But planning a good project, please don't count how many goals you can achieve by a project. Think about linkage. Your business have impact in some degree. Some may not be desirable. When you find those negative impacts, think about how you can remove or minimize the trade-offs. Also explore how you can minimize synergy or solving multiple problems at once. Maybe it's achieved by partnership and the JCM can be part of the solution. This coronavirus pandemic is unprecedented in our lifetime. The damage on the economy is serious, and many of our projects are also affected. But some projects are contributing to the stable medical supply chain. These manufacturers are responding to the increased demand thanks to the more efficient production machinery introduced by the JCM. Also, wireless control system installed for LED street lighting have enabled remote operation and maintenance while reducing the electricity consumption. These projects may not reduce a large amount of CO2 emissions, but they are part of the social infrastructure, and we value these kinds of projects for sustainable recovery from the COVID-19. This is a summary slide for my presentation. And as you have seen, the reduction of greenhouse gas emission is essential to be considered by the JCM. However, we also value the contribution to the sustainable development of partner countries. And that's all for my today's presentation. But my last message is, when you have a business plan, please think about impacts on climate change. The JCM may be able to help your plan realize or minimize negative impact and also save some cost. I hope the future project contribute to the inclusive growth and reinforce our more resilient future. Thanks for listening, and please enjoy the rest of the seminar.
Thank you very much, Ms. Uga, for the very comprehensive explanation on JCM. I think those specific projects were very insightful for the audience today. I would like to introduce the next speaker. Her name is Dr. Pawina Panichawapit. She's a manager of Review and Monitoring Office at the Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management Organization, TGO. Dr. Panichawapit, the floor is yours.
อะไรอะเสียงเข้าไหมอะเชิญขอโทษนะคะคือเรื่องมันแย่ตรงที่เสียงเข้าไหมเข้าโอเค Okay, good afternoon everybody. So for the status of JCM implementation in Thailand, starting from November 19th, 2015, after the signing ceremony of the bilateral cooperation between the government of Thailand and Japan, we have many JCM model projects as just described by our Deputy Executive Director, Dr. Natarika, that for this session, I would give you more details about the status of each development cycle. That it comprises of 7 steps. So firstly, for the status, we have the JCM model project. And after that, every model project must have the eligible methodology that they can use for calculate the greenhouse gas emission reduction. And they must prepare the project design document or PDD. And the PDD will give details about what kind of activities that the project conduct and how can they calculate the greenhouse gas emission reduction, which parameters that they must collect the data. And after that, the PD must be must be validated by the third-party entity. And the project developer must request for registration. During the registration, the joint committee will consider the validated project design document and also the Excel sheet that will be used for input the monitoring data. And so the step number 5, the project developer must monitor the parameters that according to register project design document. And after that, the monitoring report shall be verified by third-party entity again. And then they must request for credit issuance. So what I will describe to you is the status of this project cycle. So firstly, the JCM model projects, we have 33 projects, which we can categorize to two main project type. The first project type is the energy demand or energy efficiency, that we have many kind of project activities like installing the air conditioning, chiller, refrigerator, absorption chiller, and the ventilation system, heat pump, fridge showcase, boiler, waste heat recovery, heat exchanger, LED lighting, air compressor, and gas-fired melting furnace. So, and we also have many special projects like the air jet loom or electrolyzer. And for the energy industries, we have many kind of, not many kind, we have two major types, that is the solar renewable project and the biomass power plant, biomass boiler, and the biomass cogeneration.
I'm sorry, Pawina-san,
Mm-hmm.
can you try to do a full screen mode if you can? We have some audience asking if you.
Full screen. Sorry. Full ยังไงวะวันนั้นเรา full ได้นะ
พอเปิดเต็มแล้วก็ค่อยแชร์ตัวนี้
วันนั้นเราไม่ได้แชร์เพิ่มค่ะเวรกรรม
พี่หมวยเป็นแชร์แล้วก็แชร์ใหม่
But if it's difficult, that's okay. You can.
เราไม่ได้ใช้เครื่องนี้วันนั้นว่ะเดี๋ยวนะขออีกรอบเหมือนเดิม Okay, sorry. Can you see the full screen? No.
We still can't see the full screen, but it's okay. Could you please
Okay, sorry.
carry on? Thank you.
So, okay, for the methodologies that we already approved, we have nine methods for solar PV system, for air compressor, for the centrifugal chiller, air jet loom, and non-inverter type centrifugal chiller, for the ventilation air conditioning unit, waste heat recovery in cement factory, that we generate electricity, and for the heat pumps, and the last one is for the gas engine cogeneration system. And besides the approved methodologies, we also have the proposed. We have two methodologies that in the pipeline that we already get the request from the project, from the methodology developers. And we also have 5 methodologies that we already call for public input. So these methodologies the cold storage, the evaporator, screw chiller, and fridge showcase, and the last one is the electrolyzer. You can see that we have the red one, the red company, the red, yeah. LRQA is suspended because the TPE must have to must meet our requirements, that it must be a auditor under ISO standard, or it shall be the DOE under the CDM mechanism. So, but LRQA is withdraw from CDM, so it in the stage of applying for accreditation under ISO standard. So, but it will be maybe the end of this year that they can get the status again. So for the registered projects, we have 7 projects that are already registered. The first one is the solar PV systems. The second one is the air jet loom. And the third one is the air conditioning system and the chiller in the semiconductor factory. And the fourth project is the centrifugal chiller and air compressor in the semiconductor factory. Another one is the solar PV system and the power generation by waste heat recovery in cement factory. And the last one is the 30 megawatt rooftop solar power plant, a solar power system to large supermarkets. We also have 7 projects that in our pipelines. We get 1 request from the 5 megawatt floating solar power project and 6 projects that we already call for public input. For the credit issuance, we already issued the credits for JCM credits for 3 projects. And you can see that we allocate the carbon credit to both Japanese side and the Thai side. And we also have 2 projects that already submit the request for credit issuance to Secretariat. It's the airjet room projects and the solar PV system project. And until now, we have 18 events that we disseminate knowledge about JCM to the companies and relevant organizations that who interest about JCM. So this is all my presentation. Thank you.ค่ะใช่ไหมคะเพราะพี่ไม่เห็นนะ
Thank you very much, Dr. Panicha Pichit, for the presentation. I would like to move on to the next 2 speakers. I would like to introduce Mr. Soichi Tanabe, Senior Manager, and Ms. Nanako Aoyama, Assistant Manager of Financing Program Group, at Global Environment Center Foundation, JEC. Mr. Tanabe, the floor is yours.
Yes. Sawadee krap. Hello, everyone. I'm Soichi Tanabe from Global Environment Center Foundation, JEC, Tokyo, Japan. First, I'd like to explain our organization, JEC, very briefly. JEC was established in 1992 as a UNEP support entity committed to conservation of the global environment. Since 2014, JEC has been acting as an implementing organization for JCM financing program on behalf of Ministry of Environment of Japan. This is our today's agenda. Firstly, I will explain an overview of the financing program for JCM model projects. And after that, Ms. Aoyama, my colleague, will introduce our online business matching platform called JCM Global Match. This slide shows the basic concept of JCM model projects, but Ms. Uga already explained, so I'd like to skip this explanation. As you see in the middle of this slide, each JCM project is undertaken by a consortium between a Japanese entity and the JCM partner country entity. The Japanese entity is responsible for overall project management, and the partner country entity is responsible for installation and operation of low carbon equipment, and for monitoring, reporting, and verification of the GHG emission. As indicated on the left, to provide incentive for introducing low carbon technologies, Ministry of the Environment of Japan, MOEJ, offers a grant through JEC. Then, as you see on the right, JCM CO2 credits will be shared between Japanese government, the partner country government, as well as the consortium members. From this slide, I will explain guidelines for submitting proposal of JCM model projects. There are 4 criteria for the project to be supported by this program. First, projects need to reduce energy-related CO2 emissions with leading low carbon technologies in partner countries. Secondly, projects should contribute to the sustainable development in partner countries. Thirdly, reduction of GHG emissions achieved by the projects can be quantitatively calculated, in other words, measurable and can be verified. And lastly, facilities installed by the projects do not receive any other subsidy. This slide shows the basic structure of international consortium. Representative participant shall be a Japanese entity. Its main role is overall project management. At least one local entity in the partner country should join the consortium as a partner participant. Its main role is installation and management of facilities. We review application for the financing program to see if the members of consortium have relevant technological and operational experiences, financial resources, and administrative capabilities. There are typical cost items which are covered and not covered by this program. Covered costs are, for example, facilities and equipment, monitoring equipment, construction work for installation of facilities, and so on. Not covered costs are removal work for existing facilities and equipment, civil engineering work, consumable supplies and materials, spare parts, and so on. For the Japanese fiscal year of 2020, which runs from April 2020 through March 2021, the total budget for JCM model project is 9 billion yen, approximately $84 million. The financial support can cover up to 50% of eligible project costs. But depending on the number of already selected projects using a similar technology in each partner country, the maximum percentage of the financial support changes from 50% to 30%. The amount of financial support per project is generally between 50 million to 2 billion yen, or 500,000 to 20 million US dollars. Please note that the JCM projects need to complete installation and start operation within 3 years after receiving formal approval. Another important criteria is cost effectiveness. Cost effectiveness is defined by this formula. That is, the amount of financial support divided by the emission reductions over the durable years of the facilities. That means the cost to reduce 1 ton of CO2. Durable years of the facilities are stipulated by the Japanese law, and the cost to reduce 1 ton of CO2 needs to be equal to or less than 4,000 Japanese yen, approximately 40 US dollars. And the number of similar technological projects in a partner country is 5 or more. The cost effectiveness should be 3,000 yen or less. Also, if the number of similar technological projects in a partner country is 10 or more, the cost effectiveness should be 2,500 yen or less. Currently, there are 10 solar power projects in Thailand, so you should keep 2,500 yen or less for solar power project in Thailand. In fiscal 2020, we newly started JCM Eco Lease scheme that can provide financial support for leasing business. Financial support of this scheme is uniformly 10% of total leasing charge, including leasing interest. In this scheme, the monitoring period has been shortened to reduce the burden of the project reporting. The reporting period is equivalent to leasing period, but at least 5 years. This is a timeline of the first selection of JCM model projects for this fiscal year. And currently, second selection is ongoing, and we are now reviewing proposals. Please note that proposal acceptance will end as soon as the budget for this fiscal year is used up. This is a list of selected JCM model projects in Thailand as of today. There are 33 JCM model projects in Thailand, of which energy efficiency is the highest number of 20, effective use of energy is 4, and renewable energy is 14 and has been increasing recently. In fiscal 2020, nearly 2 Thai projects have been selected. These graphs show the trends of JCM model projects. In upper left graph, you can see that total budget and average amount per project are increasing. The upper right graph shows the expected GHG emission reductions by JCM model projects are increasing. And in the lower left graph, you can see number and ratio of JCM large projects are increasing. JCM large projects mean the projects with GHG emission reductions over 10,000 ton CO2 per year. Then we expect you to propose a project that will achieve greater GHG emission reductions and cost effectiveness. Coronavirus has a serious impact on the world's society and economy. During this period, new normal is required in our business, such as digital transformation, remote control of equipment, smart factory in production, digital supply chain, etc. In addition, green recovery is needed for decarbonization. We think recovery from the impact of COVID-19 is a good opportunity to accelerate decarbonization. Then we would like you to utilize the JCM financing program to tackle with these issues. We recommend that anyone who is considering a JCM model project has a consultation with JEC or TGO before submitting an official application. Please send an email to contact us. We also hold webinars this year, like today. And also, please visit our website and Twitter to find more information about the JCM. We are looking forward to working with you closely and creating more JCM model projects in Thailand. Open crowd. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tanabe. Ms. Aoyama, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kaoru, and thank you for this opportunity to introduce our business matching website, JCM Global Match. I hope this website will help you to develop your future JCM program. As Mr. Tanabe explained in previous presentation, to implement a JCM project, a Japanese entity as a representative of entity must form an international consortium. They often need support from consulting firms and loan or equity providers. We are often asked how they can reach out to potential business partners beyond the borders. JCM Global Match can be your solution. In this matchmaking website, the registrants will be sorted into one of the 4 categories: sellers, buyers, consulting firms, or financial institutions. Sellers indicate Japanese entities, and buyers indicate JCM partner country entities. Consulting firms and financial institutions are often essential in successful JCM projects. A buyer of a leading low carbon technology could be connected with a seller, a consulting firm, or a financial institution automatically based on the registered information and preferences. And a matching of the other way can be available. You can sign up for this website and take advantage of the information there for free of charge. Here are major functions of the JCM Global Match. First, an automated extraction of potential partners to be matched according to your registered information and preferences. The stage is called pre-matching. You can also search your potential partners in the manual search engine in the second phase. After you searched your potential partner, as in the third image, general information of your pre-matching partners can be viewed, so you can decide whether to send them a matching request. After each request is accepted, you and your matched user are ready to start your discussion about your future JCM project by either using the chat feature on the website or emailing directly to the partners. What's more, you can also make reservations for JCM-related events like today when they are available. Here, I'd like to show you brief information of the users of the JCM Global Match. Currently, about 30% of the users are from Japan, and the rest is consisted of partner countries and non-partner countries of the JCM financing program. The users from Thailand occupy 13% of all, as you see in the pie chart on your left. And please look at the table next to it. And it shows the actual number of the registrants, and Thai currently has 50 accounts. As you see, Thailand is ranked as the third largest country for the number of the JCM Global Match user. I hope you join in these numbers of you haven't signed. I hope you join in these numbers if you haven't signed it up yet. The URL of the website is shown here. You can also access to the website via the JCM website, a specialized page for the business matching website, or from banner links underneath every page of the JCM website. We hope you make the most of this business opportunity. Thank you, Kobuka.
Thank you very much, Ms. Aoyama, for the very insightful information. We certainly hope that you take a moment to take a look at the JCM Global Match website. And I'd like to thank all the 4 speakers for this session. Thank you for taking the time to share information with us. Now I'd like to move on to the Q&A session. We have one question from audience. What our audience asks, is it possible to apply for JCM funding by the same methodology which was approved before? And for that question, I would like to ask Mr. Tanabe to provide the answer. Sorry, if you could give us a moment, he's making his way here. So I'll repeat the question. Yes, I will repeat the question. Sorry, just a moment. Excuse us. Is it possible to apply for JCM financing by the same methodology which was approved before?
Yes, sure. You can apply for the technology for the same technology already, approved.
Thank you. And I think would also like to point out that although you can apply for a JCM project under the same methodology, the the ratio of JCM coverage can go down from 50% down to 40 to 30%, depending on how many of the same project we have in one country. So those information can be found on our website. Would you like to add anything? No. Okay. So yeah, if you are need more information about methodology, what kind of coverage you can get under JCM, you can always contact us by our email address, and we'll be happy to provide further information. Thank you. And thank you for the question. Okay, let's move on to the next session, which, so just a quick reminder for the interpretation. For Thai language, please select French. And for this session, we're also accepting questions from the audience. So please feel free to send us your questions. We'll be more than happy to answer them. Okay, I would like to move on to the next session, session 3, entitled JCM Implementation in Thailand and Information related to JCM. So it is a two-part session. For the first part, the two speakers will share with you their experiences implementing JCM project in Thailand. And then we have the second part, which is our speakers will share with you their activities as it pertains to JCM. So we have our very first guest speaker for this session. I would like to introduce him. His name is Mr. Yoichi Kaburagi. He's a division manager for Eco Solution Division at TSB. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting TSB to this session, and thank you so much for your time today. My name is Yoichi Kaburagi from TSB. Today, I'd like to introduce 3 topics. One is introduction of 5 megawatt floating PV, and monitoring and controlling a PV module, and countermeasure against COVID-19 with JCM. And this is a brief explanation about our project. The location is a Kabinburi Industrial Zone at the Prachinburi Province, where approximately 3-hour drive from Bangkok to northeast. Power generation capacity is 5.12 megawatt. Power generation is 8,917 megawatt hour per year, and the expected CO2 reduction is 2,706 tons per year. Project launch was 2019. Project operation term is 25 years. Energy customer is a private company at industrial zone. Okay, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I'd like to show our project at the bird view. As you may see, the floating has a separate 2 area, and PV generated 5 megawatt power goes to 5 separated inverters and boosted up to 22 kV. Boosted up 22 kV volt go to control room, and the control room adjust and monitor the power. Then transfer energy to the customer approximately 2 kilometers from the site using underground. This is our system configuration. Floating system is, of course, our key component, and Fabless Total Coordination supported us for remote maintenance even under COVID with a dispatching engineer from Japan. But today, I'd like to focus on device called Optimizer today. Okay, the Optimizer can control and monitor PV modules. As it is widely known that the PV power supply system has less operation workers compared to thermal or hydro. Therefore, PV power system is relatively good to avoid disease such COVID-19. However, when the system shows error message, engineer need to go site to check panels one by one in general. In the meanwhile, For our system, optimizer can monitor each panel condition one by one. This will minimize the infection risk under transportation. This is a sample of monitoring system. At one glance, we can see the panel running with normal or abnormal. By putting cursor on dedicated area, we can see the detail of the panel condition. We can also track back the data to the past. This is an example pointing back panel group. This panel has zero output with current, but zero with voltage, but without current. This meaning this panel is okay, but need to doubt that this panel group having a string open issue. The safety of power control also important. This year we got a heavy rain disaster at Kyushu area. Not only Japan, China, or Korea also having trouble too. Flood in Thailand 2011 also unforgettable for me. Nowadays, a natural disaster could be occurred anywhere in the world because of the climate change. With optimizer, we can cut off each panel output through the internet. Connected panel string generate 500 to 1000 volts, which cause critical damage to the body. So we need to cut off each panel when need. The key point is even turning off the inverter. Solar panels keeps power generating as long as there is sunlight. So applying appropriate preparation against such natural disaster is important even for small capacity power generation system. Now I have to go on the last topic of countermeasure.
คราวนี้มาพูดถึงต่อในเรื่องของการที่จะรับมือกับปัญหา
Sorry about that. Could you continue,
ขออ
please?
ภัยนะคะกรุณา
Sorry,
ต่อ
just
เลยค่ะ ขออ
seems
ภัย
we
ค่ะ
have a little bit of mishap.
เรามีปัญหา
I
ทาง
think
ด้าน
we're
เทคนิ
hearing
ค
the
นิดหน่อย
translator.
Okay, PV installation situation in Japan and the COVID is
เรา
not so
PV
good.
installation นะคะในเรื่องของการติดตั้งระบบแผงโซล่าร์นี้ที่เราเรียกว่า PV เนี่ย ในช่วงได้ยินนะคะ
Sorry, I'm so
Hey,
sorry
Yunaka.
about that, audience. Could you give us one moment? One of the translators, I think she might be on the wrong channel. Excuse us for a moment. Could you? I think the translator on the Thai side might be using a different channel. Sorry about that. Could you continue, please?
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you.
So currently, most of PV-related equipment are made in China. So in March, there was many installation schedule impact in Japan. And in April, the material supply were recovered, but the new installation was slowed down due to COVID worse in Japan in April. Eventually, the new PV system installation this year is
คนสุดท้ายแล้ว
expected
นะคะในเรื่องของการติด
30%
ตั้ง
lower
ระบบ
volume compared to last year. Let's take a look forward. Same to Japan compared to last year, this year's new PV installation is expected lower, but not as bad as Japan. Green recovery is one powerful movement from Europe. For example, Portugal is to make PV installation smoother so that PV approval process smoother so that much easier for opening SPP business. Switzerland attempts to lift the solar PV market tends to more optimistic. The change of life. There are worldwide curfews, quarantines, similar restrictions related to COVID-19 to prevent future spread. After the restrictions relieved, people may return back to the office and downtown. However, it will not be happen like the one before the COVID, because people experienced efficiency and the convenience of the short and small teams meeting. Telework will be applied more frequently, dinner with client will be reduced. everybody start considering what is the best balance of life with safe. Urban escape will be one of the trends. The liability at the countryside are drastically improved. Nowadays, we have Uber Eats, Amazon, Lazada in Thailand. Personal trading also easy to make. Power supply trend also changed following people's new lifestyle. Again, most people were longing for life in the city, wishing to live in the city. This is centralization or concentration. Nowadays, people understand the advantage and the safety net of the countryside. Tend to live in the green, this is decentralization. Coincidentally, energy also same. Renewable energy is decentralization. PV, wind, wave, those are located in local. People move to local, more energy is required in local. So why don't we make energy in local for local use? So it's good for a trend for renewable energy investors for us to expand. So far I mentioned positively at the change under the COVID. However, it is optimistic side thing. There's no guarantee of green recovery success. Promotion system under Paris Agreement might be discouraged if Donald Trump re-elected. Following the market demand dropped, energy tariff is down, which might slow down investors to make the new investment, much less at developing countries. So we need to utilize JCM. The foundation of JCM is renewable energy. We're utilizing natural energy resource. So it happens in local. By increasing the JCM project, it will utilize local resource and enhance local livability. Like I mentioned previously, living new normal is decentralization for safe. New normalization activity should happen not only the developed country, but should be also developing countries. New normal energy also same situation. Through JCM, by working on reducing GHG without realizing, this activity may support countermeasure against COVID-19 and makes people life safe and enriching. So at the last, me as an investor side opinion, to having stronger support from partner country also important to support JCM, because this will accelerate to open new projects. For example, makes JCM project the PPA smoother, or local support local stakeholder negotiation, because this will make investors decide quicker and eventually makes countryside enrich and safe. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kabragi, for a very valuable insight. I would like to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Hirohito Ishige. He is an executive director at Tepia Corporation, Japan. And I would like to apologize for that little bit of mishap over there just now. And I also noticed that there was a question about presentation materials. We will be uploading all the presentation materials on our webinar page. So if you would like to see any of the presentation later, please check back our website at a later time. So I would like to hand over the microphone over to Mr. Ishige, please.
สวัสดีครับทุกท่านที่เข้าร่วมเซมินาร์ JCM วันนี้นะครับผมชื่ออิชิเกะนะครับมาจากบริษัทเตปิยาคอร์ปอเรชั่นญี่ปุ่นนะครับยินดีที่ได้มีโอกาสมุ่งเสนอโครงการของเรา Introduction of Biomass Boiler to Cooking Oil Factory นะครับ Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ishige, working for Tepia Corporation Japan. I'd like to introduce one of our JCM projects in Thailand. Introduction of biomass boiler to cooking oil factory. The project has been nominated as a JCM subsidy program in February 2019 and started operation from November 2019. We, Tepia Corporation Japan and Tanacon Vegetable Oil Products, or TVOP, installed a biomass boiler in vegetable oil factory of TVOP, which is located in Prasamut Jadi, Samut Prakan province. TVOP's vegetable oil is well known as cook plant. As you may be aware, they use a lot of steam energy in refinery process of vegetable oil. So in this project, we installed 35 ton per hour capacity biomass boiler to meet the production expansion. The biomass boiler with water tube, fire tube combination boiler with step grade technology has been manufactured by Jetabek, Thai company. Well, I hope all distinguished participants are here today because you're interested in JCM scheme. Of course, there is no doubt that JCM scheme is a very great one to get subsidy from Japanese government when you install the low carbon equipment or technology. However, in this JCM scheme, there is a rule that a Japanese company must be a representative of the project. It practically means Thai company must look for Japanese partner entity if they would like to apply JCM. So in this project, we, Tepia Corporation Japan, a consulting company in Japan, joined as a representative entity, and TVOP, Thai company, joined as a cooperative entity to constitute international consortium, which has joint responsibility to Japanese government for the project execution in 10 years. In other words, if we stop using this biomass boiler before 10 years passed, TPR and TVOP might be requested to return subsidy to Japanese government. The role of each company is as you see on this slide. TPR is responsible for reporting to government and JCM project registration. TVOP is responsible for maintaining the equipment, keep using it, and monitoring the amount of steam production and electricity usage. We can say that TEPIA and TVOP spent enough time to clarify the roles and responsibilities of each other and finally decided to apply JCM subsidy. If any not Japanese affiliated Thai company considers to apply JCM subsidy, you can refer our project as one of the example cases. This is current schedule of the project. The boiler started operation from November 2019, just started, and already reported first yearly report to government last March. However, 10 years counts have just started. Here you can see CO2 reduction scheme of the project. It is becoming common to utilize a natural gas once-through boiler in Bangkok surround area, since the once-through boiler has some advantage. For instance, safety, stability, and space-saving perspective. Moreover, due to the natural gas pipeline has been extended recently, the access to the natural gas resource has been gradually improved. So we also acknowledge that there are some JCM projects installing once-through boiler to factory in Thailand as well. On the other hand, using biomass boiler have a great advantage on CO2 emission reduction. As the biomass is defined as zero emission fuel, if we switch the fuel from fossil to biomass, we can reduce a lot of CO2 emission, even if we compare with natural gas. In this regard, we recognize that CO2 emission reduction from this project, as you see in this slide, in a tentative calculation, we estimate that we can reduce around 30,000 tons CO2 per year from this. At the same time, we have a very important issue to continue this kind of project using biomass fuel, how to secure the procurement of those biomass. In case we cannot procure the biomass as it is scheduled, it will affect the amount of CO2 emission reduction. In the worst case, we may have to return the subsidy to Japanese government if we give up the project before 10 years pass. So we contracted with some suppliers in long-term basis to keep biomass procurement stably. So finally, comes to the last slide. We must say that our business or project have certain effect due to COVID-19. Some activities such as face-to-face meeting has been avoided, but we think that we have already restarted the business activity in new normal. In terms of the project, we have taken some countermeasures to execute the project in MRB, fuel procurement, or project registration. Moreover, we have already started preparation of new JCM project in the future as well. So we shall say that we are confident to overcome this situation and go to the next stage. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for the introduction of the biomass technology, and also reminding us that even though we are still suffering through the COVID-19 crisis, that companies are able to develop new projects and carry on. I would like to introduce our next guest speaker. His name is Mr. Jun Watanabe. He's a researcher for Project Development Department at Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center, Japan, OECC. Mr. Watanabe, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, Sadikap. So first of all, thank you for giving us this opportunity to give a presentation about our activities and our experience regarding the JCM project development. So today I'd like to give a brief presentation about our activities in 10 minutes in Asia and in Thailand. So in my presentation, I will share 3 points. First, who we are, and second, what we do for the JCM, and last, some lessons learned from our activities so far. Also, I'd like to touch upon potential sector, which we think there will be a potential to develop a JCM project in Thailand. So I'd like to start with who we are. So OECC has been implementing research studies and capacity building in the field of environment and development cooperation in developing countries through closely working with, mainly with Ministry of Environment Japan, and also with other governmental organizations such as JICA. And regarding the JCM, we have been entrusted by Ministry of Environment Japan to outreach the JCM information and also to promote JCM project development. As for the outreaching activities, so number 1 and 2 in this slide, we are operating JCM information platform website called Carbon Market Express to provide comprehensive information of the JCM. For example, FAQ about the JCM or introduction of good practice of JCM project. In addition, we recently started to provide more detailed, useful information for project development. So this is what we call JCM information sheet. summarizing JCM projects and NDC information and related policy by sector category. In Thailand and in Indonesia and Vietnam, we have 3 information sheets. You can check it later at our website. And this is what we call JCM information report, providing more sector-specific information such as renewable energy policy. This is the case in Indonesia. We will publish a Thai version later, so you can also check it on our website later. And as for project development activities, number 3, 4, 5 in this slide, normally we visit JCM partner countries to conduct survey for identifying needs from local companies. However, this year, due to the COVID-19, we are trying to conduct online-based survey. So we also conduct workshops and study tours. This is last year's matchmaking event in Mongolia. And last but not least, we support companies directly to apply to JCM financing scheme. So far, we have been supporting over 20 project development in Asia. This is a list of recently selected JCM model projects which we supported. From this list, I'd like to pick up 2 case studies to share with you our activities and some lessons learned. So this is case 1. OCC has supported several solar power projects in Mongolia. Mongolia's NDC and other development policies for energy sector set the renewable energy target to achieve 30% of renewable electricity in national grid and 145 megawatt of solar power capacity by 2030. And actually, many solar power projects financed by the JCM model project is contributing to significantly to achieve this target. So in this slide, I'd like to explain what we did for these cases. As for needs finding and matchmaking, in one project, there was a local company who had a plan for solar project, but they didn't have available finance. So we looked for solar module manufacturer, supplier, and support matchmaking between them. And in another case, there was a company operating agricultural project in Mongolia, and they had a plan for expanding that project with solar power project. So again, we supported matchmaking with between 2 companies. So next, as for project formulation, we conducted study tour to Japan to introduce technologies to Mongolian companies. We also had close communication with the JCM Secretariat and relevant public authorities, such as power company in Mongolia. This is important because there are some permissions such as PPA, power purchase agreement, which is need to be acquired in advance. So, and finally, we supported the application for JCM project in this case. I'd like to draw one lesson learned from this case. Of course, JCM project must be beneficial for project participants, but at the same time, policy background is very important to smoothly implement the project. As I showed in the previous slide, Mongolia has concrete target for increasing solar power capacity in the country, and this situation pushed forward these solar power projects. So this is case 2. Energy efficient amorphous transformers have been installed in regional power grids in Vietnam to reduce energy consumption and to realize GHG emission reduction. And this project has started from south of Vietnam, south region of Vietnam since 2014 and expanded to central and the north other regions. About 10,000 amorphous transformers have been introduced in Vietnam so far. Moreover, the transformers were also installed in Laos in 2018. So as for needs finding and matchmaking, OECC approached regional power companies together with the local supplier of the transformers. So we also supported matchmaking with Japanese companies in the international consortium of JCM model project. As for project formulation, it was difficult to introduce the transformer because the original procurement rule prioritized the initial cost of facility, not the total cost or total efficiency in long term. So OECC and with local supplier, we advocated advantage of the amorphous transformer to the power companies, such as entire system efficiency and total cost with the JCM finance. As a result, procurement requirements were revised to evaluate total cost and efficiency in this case. So one lesson learned from this case is that it is difficult but possible for JCM to install facilities in public sector through the public bidding process. So again, one important thing is policy background. There was the official target to reduce power loss of transmission. So therefore, introduction of the energy efficient transformer were in line with this policy direction. So this is the last slide. So considering these two lessons learned and circumstances in Thailand, I extracted example of JCM potentials for renewable energy and energy efficiency. As for renewable energy, the latest revised AEDP has increased the renewable energy target and put large emphasis on solar and biomass. Also, Board of Investment provides tax import duties exemption for investment in renewable energy projects. As for off-grid solar, rooftop solar or biomass boiler for captive use or self-consumption in factory or commercial building has become very popular recently in Thailand. So there have been already many such JCM projects and can be more projects in future. As for on-grid solar, one notable trend is floating solar, so which was presented by the TSB. And in addition, the AEDP, latest AEDP sets a target for this type of project, and EGAT is planning to construct mega solar project in 9 dams in Thailand. So this is not easy one, but one big potential for long-term project development. So as for on-grid biomass and waste energy, there is a policy called Energy for All for supporting community power plant using municipal waste and biomass. And this can be also potential, but please note this policy scheme is still under consideration by the government, by cabinet. And in addition, the first wind power project was selected as JCM model project in Philippines last year. And in Thailand, just recently, ADB announced to finance the construction of wind power and battery storage project. And so this will be also the potential. As for the energy efficiency in commercial sector, latest PDP is implementing a new building energy code to regulate energy conservation of building over 2,000 square meter floor space. So that this building energy code regulates energy standard of cooling and heating systems and lighting and renewable energy such as solar rooftop. So market of energy efficient products is expected to expand in coming years in Thailand. So that's all from my presentation. For more information, please check our website or Facebook and mail magazine and also if you need our support to materialize JCM project, please feel free to contact us anytime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Watanabe, for very insightful information and for sharing potential projects in Thailand. Our next guest speaker is Ms. Temuru Murun. She is a policy researcher for climate energy for Institute for Global Environment Strategies, IGES. She's joining us remotely. I see her. Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I am going to share my presentation. Where is Okay, thank you all for attending today's webinar. I'm Temuling, a researcher in Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, and looking forward to talking with you about linkages between GCM and SDGs. I would like to introduce our institute. IGS is a research institute focusing on policy development and strategic research for environmental areas in Asia Pacific region and globally. We also develop and support methodologies for the GCM projects. Today, I will covering 3 key points. First point is the relationship between climate change and SDGs and GCM application. And the second point is key findings from IGS report, which is GCM contribution to SDGs. And the last point is impacts and responses of COVID-19 and GCM potentials. Here, I will talk about how the GCM supports achievement of Paris Agreement and SDGs. The relationship between Paris Agreement and SDGs is like a two sides of one coin. It can complete with each other. Agenda 2030 is the universal blueprint of the sustainable society. The report published by UNFCCC and UNDC mentioned that Goal 7 and Goal 9 and Goal 12 of the SDGs can contribute to GHG emission reductions and transition to low and decarbonization society, which is a significant step forward to Paris Agreement target. Also, IPCC report 1.5 report mentioned that if the global warming were limited to 1.5 Celsius, the SDGs can be easily achieved. To achieve targets of Paris Agreement and SDGs, we need a strong global partnership beyond the country's border. The GCM is a bilateral agreement between 2 countries, which can support climate change mitigation actions as well as the achievement of SDGs. With having this background, we published the GCM contribution to SDGs report in last March with the support of MOJ. This report is the first publication that analyzed interlinkage of GCM and SDGs. From here, I will explain 3 key findings from our analysis. Sorry. I can't move the next slide. Sorry. The first key finding is that we identified the GCM contributes to multiple goals and targets of SDGs, not only environmental and economic goals of the SDGs, but also social dimensions of the SDGs. In total, the GCM contributed to 10 goals out of 17 goals of the SDGs. As you can see, goals 7, 13, 8, 9, and 2, 3, 4, 6, 12, 17. For example, this project installed high-efficiency water pump in water treatment in Da Nang City. The installed energy efficiency water pump contributed to increase the amount of supplying water by 5,000 tons per day. This project achieved to supply stable and high-quality water to the city, which can contribute to Goal 6, clean water and sanitation. The project also provided technical training for local project participants for maintenance, operation, and monitoring in order to operate the project properly. The second key finding is that installing different technology and implementing a project in different sectors can increase the GCM contribution to various goals and SDGs goals and targets of the SDGs. The projects developed under the GCM scheme can have common goals of the SDGs that automatically projects can contribute. You can see here, these are goal 4, 7, 9, 12, 13, and 17. In addition of these common goals, an individual GCM project can contribute to different SDGs based on project types and sector, which is introduced the projects. For example, installing high efficiency waste paper processing system into packaging paper factory can reduce energy consumption and also support recycling resource and waste. The examples of this finding is the one JCM project, which is introduced in Mongolia to install solar power plant in a farm. This project generated electricity by solar PV, which led to reduced fossil fuel consumption and contribute to air pollution reduction. This is which means this project contributed to goal 3, and also this project is delivering high quality and fresh vegetable to the residents of the city. In last year, 27 tons of vegetable was produced, which has contributed to goal 2, zero hunger. The last key point, last key findings, that JCM has a potential to expand its contribution to more SDGs. For instance, introducing solar energy power generation into irrigation system in the agriculture sector would support targets of zero hunger goal 2 and also clean water and sanitation. Also installing low carbon technologies in water treatment and plastic waste treatment plants can contribute to industry innovation, sustainable cities, and life underwater. From here, I would like to explain the JCM potentials in the recovery of the COVID-19 pandemic. First, I will briefly explain the impacts of this pandemic. As we all know, this COVID-19 is far more than a health crisis. It's affecting societies and economies at their core. Emerging market and developing economics are suffering due to weak healthcare system and loss of trade and tourism and tight financial conditions and mounting international debt. The pandemic also has impacted on SDGs achievement and its progress. As shown in here, UNDC report stated that COVID-19 has shown devastating effect on health outcomes, disrupted the food production supply chain, affected millions of workloads, suspended economic activities and workplace, and closed schools and workplaces. And all this negative impacts led to increase the gap of inequality, which is here you can see the goal 10. Therefore, it is critical to strengthen public health system, address the challenges posed by the pandemic, implement reform that will support strong and sustainable growth. The international community and countries are developing green and sustainable recovery plan to COVID-19 by establishing new norms. As UNFCCC Executive Secretary mentioned, the recovery plan should address climate change, and it should establish more inclusive and sustainable path for all and make societies and people more resilient. And we all know in last December 2019, the EU announced that the Green Deal, which is a roadmap for making the EU's economy sustainable by turning climate and environmental challenges into opportunities across all policies areas. So what are the potentials that JCM has for responses and recovery plans to the COVID-19? As I mentioned previous slide, these are the key aspects of the recovery plan: inclusive and sustainable resilient society, protecting human and health services, multilateral collaboration, solidarity, resource efficiency, clean energy, which mentioned in the Green Deal, and decarbonization, securing employment. These are all closely related to Agenda 2030, which means that SDGs can be a valuable tool to guide the nation and international recovery efforts. Because in the SDGs, we have a blueprint to not only address health system, but also address food, economic, climate change. In such responses to COVID-19, the JCM project are linked with all these SDGs, as you can see from from the slide. And GCM can support the countries to improve their energy efficiency towards sustainable industry, support public health and sanitation, and reduce natural resource consumption by improving energy efficiency. There is a clear indication that GCM can be a strategic tool to support countries' goal toward Paris Agreement and SDGs achievement, but also support to recovery plan from COVID-19. Now I would like to summarize my presentation highlighting 3 key points that I've mentioned. First point is the relationship between climate change and SDGs. The GCM application can support both international frameworks ambitions target and key findings. Next point is key findings from IGS report, GCM contribution to SDGs. We identified the GCM contribute to multiple goals and targets of SDGs. And it is important to implement GCM project in different sectors that would increase the chances to achieve SDGs. The last point I mentioned, impacts and responses of the COVID-19, the GCM potentials in it. The responses and recovery plan should be green, sustainable, resilient, which is closely linked to Agenda 2030. By implementing GCM project in the essential sectors, which the country needs, can actually support the achievement of SDGs and recovery from COVID-19. Before finishing my presentation, I would like to announce our next work on GCM SDGs. We are going to publish the GCM SDGs linkage guidance at the end of the August. If you are interested, please visit our website. These are the reference lists, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Maroon, for the insightful information about linkages between JCM projects and SDGs, and also with COVID-19. I would like to introduce our last speaker for this session, Mr. Akira Ishikawa. He's a Deputy Director General at Osaka Branch Industry Finance Group at Japan Bank for International Cooperation, JBIC. Mr. Ishikawa, over to you.
First of all, thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to be joined in the seminars. My name is Akira Ishikawa from Japan Bank for International Cooperation, JBIC, JBIC. Okay, please go ahead. Yes, we are institution, Japan Bank for International Cooperation, JBIC is Japanese government policy-based banking. Wholly owned by the Japanese government. Okay. And we are the government agency, but we are not our aid agency. Our JBIC finance is categorized as other official finance. Okay. Then the JBIC is not a private bank. Okay. We are government agency. And then our financing, we provided long-term debt and equity financing to the overseas project. And our finance is provided in the form of our sovereign finance or corporate finance or project finance, okay? And as our form of the limited recourse financing. And our mission is to contribute to the sound development of Japan and the international economy and society by conducting its operation in the following 4 fields. Okay? First one is promoting the overseas development and the securement of the resources, which are important for Japan. And the second one is maintain and improving the international competitiveness of Japanese industry. And the third one is promoting the overseas business, having the purpose of preserving the global environment, such as preventing global warming. And the last one is preventing disruption to international financial order or taking appropriate measures with respect to damage caused by such disruption, like a Lehman shock or Asian crisis. Okay. Now, this list is our major example of eligible projects to be financed by the JBIC. Okay. Energy supply, including renewable energy, and also other form of energy supply, such as gas-fired power generation or cogeneration, etc. Okay. And also energy efficiency project also categorized as an environment. And green innovation, including smart energy, green mobility, or smart city. And also, project which doesn't reduce greenhouse gas emissions are also categorized as an environmental project. For example, now, prevention of air pollution, or water supply, or water pollution, preservation of water pollution project. And JBIC's financial instruments are rather diversified compared with other peer agency like a US EXIM or KfW or COPAS or SACHEO, etc. Okay. So our JBIC was originally established as the Export-Import Bank of Japan, Japanese governmental export credit agencies in 1955. Okay. But we are in response to the diversification of Japanese companies' needs, we are enlarged, we diversified our financial products. Okay? Export loans is a very traditional export credit function. Okay? And also import loans or overseas investment loans or untitled-based financing. And apart from the debt financing, we also provided the equity participation or guarantees. This page shows our JBIC financing portfolio. It's a commitment basis in the fiscal year 2018. Our total commitment, out of our total commitment, almost 70% are supported via overseas investment loans. It's a major function right now. The export loan share is only 6%, but it depends on the requirement of the market. And right-hand chart shows the commitment by region. In fiscal year 2018, the Europe was the largest share, 39%, and the Asia is 33%, okay, and the Middle East is 9%. Okay. But geographical distribution has been changed from time to time, depending on the project. In this fiscal year, the large-scale M&A financing in Europe was included this fiscal year. Okay. But historically, in the past, we provided mainly the export credit, but recently our overseas investment financing is our major function. Okay, let me go ahead to the details of our financing scheme. First one is the overseas investment loans. This loan provides support the Japanese companies' overseas business. In such cases, Japanese companies are involved in a project as a sponsor. In many cases, they are set up the overseas affiliate by themselves or joint venture with local companies. In such a case, JBIC extends the long-term debt financing to the Japanese affiliate in overseas directly. And also, we collaborated with a private financial institution. We are under the overseas investment loans, and JBIC can finance up to the 60% of the total debt financing portion for the large companies. And in case of the small and medium enterprises project, the JBIC can finance up to the 70% of the total debt financing. And JBIC, apart from the direct finance to the Japanese affiliate, we also provided a loan to the Japanese parent company. Okay? Was a financial requirement to provide the parent loan to the subsidiary or equity participation to the overseas affiliate. And in some cases, we may extend a loan to the foreign government or financial institution and ask them to own lend to our proceeds to our Japanese affiliate. But recently, or in many cases, the Japanese borrower end user is established in the form of a joint venture with local companies. Therefore, now we believe that our finance would also contribute to the local economy. And the next scheme is the export loans. It's a very traditional function. We are a JVIC, collaborated with a private financial institution, and we extend the buyer's credit to the foreign importer for the financial requirement to import goods and service and technology from our Japanese companies. And in some cases, we also provide this bank loan to the foreign financial institution, and then they foreign financial institution will lend to the foreign importer to import goods and services from Japanese companies. And this export credit is categorized as an offshore export credit. Therefore, this scheme is terms and conditions of export loan are regulated by the OECD export credit arrangement. And the third one is the untitled loan. And this untitled loan is untitled finance, which doesn't require the direct Japanese interest. In many cases, we set up the credit line with the foreign banks or foreign government institution. And then if case there are some concrete project in the host countries to be expected, this credit line would support for such project via sub-loans. We not discriminate the Japanese export, but it's untied based financing. Therefore, in some cases, these are local companies could procure the goods and service from the local or overseas, including or excluding our Japanese. And apart from the debt financing, we also provide this equity participation, equity financing. In this equity participation, we provide equity finance, and also we require Japanese companies also provide equity to overseas project. It's a co-equity project. And in some cases, we set up the fund, and the fund provided the financing to the end user project. I also introduce some project cases. Okay? This case 1 and case 2 are JCM project. And most of them are SME projects. The first one is a solar power generation project, the IPP project in Mongolia. A Japanese company, Farmdo, set up a subsidiary, Everyday Farm, EDF, in Mongolia. And they sell the power to the Mongolian National Power Transmission Company for over the next 20 years. And next one is the Ryobi Holdings project. It's located in Okayama Prefecture, Japan. Ryobi Holdings established an affiliate, and they installed the multi-temperature controlled distribution warehouse. It's a so-called cold chain. And also water treatment projects. We support this project in Sweden or US, basically. And apart from the infrastructure project, we also support for upgrading of existing equipment. This project is Nippon Shokubai, one of the Japanese chemical companies, set up the they have the affiliate in Indonesia. Then they will this investment will optimize the energy use within the plants through upgrading of existing equipment. And we also support the water-related projects. one is a project financing for gas-fired power generation and desalination project in Qatar. And the next one is we suppose manufacturing and the sales of bulb in Malaysia. And in Myanmar, we also suppose a multifunctional real estate complex. And offshore wind or onshore wind and geothermal projects. And we also support the rolling stock project in the UK. That is also categorized as an environmental project. And due to the time constraint, I cannot explain in detail in the appendix, but in response to the COVID-19, we also modified our financing tools. Right now, in case the project was affected by the COVID-19, we will apply the COVID-19 emergency window when the preferential condition would be applied in such project. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ishikawa, for the insightful information. And I would like to thank all the 5 speakers who spoke during this session. I would like to just a quick reminder for the audience, please take a moment to answer the poll, the questionnaire. It will only really take about 10 seconds to answer them, and it will give us great insight into how to improve our future webinars. Okay, I'd like to move on to the question from one audience. So one of our audience asked for to Mr. Kabragi. So why did you install the modules on the water on this project? And what is the advantage of PV on the water compared to normal one? And what is the technical difficulty of PV system on the water?
Okay, so putting on water PV has many advantages. One big advantage is that it will utilize unused land. For example, like people living in the city, there's many like water pond which cannot use for store or living or market. And then to make power generation PV require many space. For example, of our 5 megawatt, it normally including other like inverter MDB transformers, to make 5 megawatt, it requires about 50,000 square meter. If we use this land for another opportunity, for example, factory or like living or like supermarket, it will make it like a human life like richer. But then like meanwhile, there's many water which cannot be used. So utilizing such land is like enrich the city. And the second is for the PV modules characteristic. If the temperature of the PV modules increase, it will decrease the efficiency. For the testing the result, putting on water because of the water evaporation efficiency on water floating PV compared to the same panel, the efficiency increase about 10 to 15%. And the third reason is we can put the we can use a water pond nearby living. That meaning is we can avoid putting the transmission line. For example, our another project in Laos, most of the power to the Vientiane city come from the 100 kilometer far from the hydro. So in Japan's case, putting 100 kilometer transmission line costs nearly 100 million Japan yen. But by putting the power generation nearby the city, we can reduce transmission cost. And then for the coming 25 years, we can also avoid transmission line maintenance cost as well. So that's why we choose unused land water pond for the our PV system.
Thank you very much for that answer. We also noticed that there are more questions than we can answer today. Unfortunately, we have run out of time and we won't be able to answer everything. But we will post our answers on the webinar page at a later time. So please check back our website, our event page if your question was not answered. You're also welcome to contact us by the email, and if you have any additional questions or if you missed the opportunity to send us questions today. Okay, and I'd like to thank all the speakers today. Thank you for taking the time to share the information with us. Without further ado, and last but not least, I would like to move on to the last session of this webinar for the closing remarks. I'd like to introduce Mr. Yuji Kimura. He's an Executive Director and Head of Tokyo Office at Global Environment Center Foundation. Mr. Kimura, over to you.
Thank you, Yamaguchi-san. On behalf of the organizers, I'd like to say a few words as a closing address. First, we deeply appreciate all of you for participating in today's webinar. We have been holding JCM seminars continuously in Thailand for several years to create an opportunity for people in Thailand to learn and deepen their understanding about the JCM financing program. This year, due to the influence of coronavirus, we decided to hold a seminar in a webinar format. But thanks to you, we were able to have many more participants than expected today. To wrap up today's presentation, in the session 1, we had special speeches from Dr. Natalika TGO and Mr. Suga, Embassy of Japan, addressing the importance and further development of JCM as a tool of contributing to GHG emission reductions, as well as sustainable development in Thailand, especially during the COVID-19 period. In the session 2, we had new updates on the program and status of the JCM model projects from Ms. Uga, Ministry of the Environment, Japan, Dr. Pawina, TGO, and Tanabe and Aoyama, JEC. We hope these presentations gave you clear images of JCM model projects and the necessary information on the formation of JCM projects. And in the session 3, Mr. Kaburagi, TSP, and Mr. Ishige, Tepia Corporation Japan, shared good practices of JCM implementation and experiences in Thailand, including several countermeasures, such as digitization to defy the impacts of coronavirus. It was very impressive for us to learn that the JCM financing program has been utilized with such effectiveness in Thailand, even during the COVID-19 period. The presentations from Mr. Watanabe, OECC, and Ms. Tenuren, IGES, were very insightful, and we believe it will be useful for your project formation. Lastly, Mr. Ishikawa, JBIC, introduced their financing program with some focus on the environmental field and useful cooperation with the JCM. After we heard today's presentations, we believe that through cooperation with various related organizations, the JCM financing program can contribute to GHG emission reduction as well as sustainable economic recovery in the COVID-19 period in this region. These are certainly challenging at times, but as the presenters shared with you today, there are solutions, and we look forward to receiving your proposals. We are planning to hold webinars for other partner countries, so we would appreciate it if you could join us again. Finally, I'd like to thank all speakers and viewers again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kimura, for the closing remarks. This marks the end of the webinar. Thank you, everyone, again, for participating in our webinar today. We certainly hope it was insightful for you. Again, if you have any questions that were not sent to us today, please feel free to contact us by email, or we also have a contact form on our website. Again, for the questions that we didn't answer today, we will be posting answers on the event website, so please check back later for those. And the slides that the presenter shared with you today will also be posted on our website. Okay, excuse me. So yes, the end of the webinar. And we would like to thank the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment of Thailand. And we would also like to thank the Ministry of the Environment Japan and Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management Organization for co-organizing today's event. And many thanks to ASEAN Japan Center for their kind support. Please take a moment to answer the questionnaire. It will be very helpful for us. And if you have registered for individual meetings at a later time, please access to that meeting by the given Zoom URL at the time specified in your reservation. Okay, this marks the end of the webinar. Thank you everyone again for joining us, and we hope to see your proposals and see you very soon. Thank you.